is Jeffrey William Jackson.
In September 2005, you were appointed as a member of the governing body of the Jehovah's Witnesses.
That is correct.
Goedenavond. Politie en justitie hebben invallen gedaan bij het hoofdkantoor en 2 kerken van Jehovah's getuigen. Dat heeft het Openbaar Ministerie bevestigd na vragen van RTL Nieuws. De invallen gebeurden ruim 2 weken geleden in het kader van een groot onderzoek naar seksueel misbruik binnen het kerkgenootschap.
And Jehovah's Witnesses covered up child abuse for years.
I did abuse him.
Admitted serial pedophile Gonzalo Campos fled the country. He may never see the inside of a prison cell. His on-camera admissions and a settlement worth millions may have to be enough for his victims. Campos is just one of thousands of alleged abusers the Jehovah's Witnesses know about. A database detailing more than 23,000 allegations of abuse was taken from church headquarters and revealed to the public in 2002.
Do you think it's widely known that there are sexual abuse problems inside the Jehovah's Witness Church?
No, and it needs to be brought to the public's attention.
And tonight, a City News exclusive. This is a $66 million class action lawsuit that's been filed against a religious organization best known for its door-to-door proselytizing. The Jehovah's Witnesses accused of having rules and policies that protect child sex abusers and put children in harm's way. Tricia says her first 14 years of life as a Jehovah's Witness was filled with sexual abuse that was ignored and covered up by the religious organization she has now left. This $66 million class action lawsuit has now been filed on behalf of alleged child sex abuse victims across the country, claiming this. The organization's policy and protocol for dealing with allegations of sexual abuse is seriously flawed and results in further harm to victims of sexual abuse and results in legitimate allegations of sexual abuse going unreported. Specifically named in the suit is what's called the two-witness rule.
They're expected to produce 2 credible eyewitnesses to their assault or to their abuse. So this obviously never happened.
The claim so far untested in court alleges this. For decades, the organization has received thousands of reports of sexual abuse, including child sex abuse, and has failed to investigate and or report the abuse to secular authorities, even where required by law.
He asked us not to show his face because of the possible impact on Jehovah's Witnesses and his family. But he spoke with us because of what he saw when he worked here, the church's Canadian headquarters. They call it Bethel, the House of God, a sprawling 65-acre complex in Georgetown, Ontario, outside Toronto. For 3 years, in the early 90s, he worked in its legal department, filing, typing, answering the phone, sometimes taking calls from elders reporting child abuse allegations. Though child protection laws do vary somewhat from province to province, everywhere in Canada the law is clear. If there are reasonable grounds to suspect child abuse, everyone, including clergy, must report it to child welfare authorities. But this man says it doesn't always work that way.
Are you aware of a case or cases where someone phoned in with an allegation of sex abuse and that person was told, do not report it?
Yes. There were several which I became aware of while I was in legal, that people were told, elders were told, do not report because you don't have a basis for it. The fact is that there are pedophiles walking through the halls of the Kingdom Halls. There are pedophiles going door to door in communities across Canada. Even if somebody has been convicted, served time as a child rapist, they are told they have to go out in the door-to-door ministry and knock on people's doors on Saturday morning or Sunday morning.
I can remember feeling like, you know, the inside of me screaming out to the people of the congregation for help.
This is the story of Candace Conti, a young woman stepping out of the shadows to take on the all-male leadership of a wealthy, secretive religion.
On behalf of the North Fremont Congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses,
who she says failed to protect her from a predatory pedophile.
Just kind of screaming out for somebody to come protect me.
The jurors sided with Candace.
One step closer, oh my gosh.
In a landmark verdict in 2012, she was eventually awarded more than $15 million.
I don't hold a monopoly on pain. And if we can change that momentum, instead of being victims, we can have our words speak for change, then this pain might be a little bit worth it.
All of that money aside, she didn't get what she was after, which was a change in the policy.
I don't think she got a formal change in the policy, but the publicity, the knowledge that when your doorbell rings on a Saturday morning, the person standing there could be a convicted child molester posing as a religious believer. That message has gotten out.
Beyond just delivering a powerful message, Simmons thinks lawsuits like Canada's new multi-million-dollar suits will eventually force the Jehovah's Witnesses to change.
They have tremendous wealth, billions of dollars in wealth, but the price of abuse is getting higher, and at some point it gets too high to be able to withstand it.
You believe that?
Yes, it will, because the financial cost, like it did the Catholic Church, will make sure that they have to change to survive.
The thousands of files detailing sexual misconduct within the Jehovah's Witnesses.
These people, their secrets were terrible.
The Watchtower Society in Brooklyn. Barbara Anderson spent 10 years here with her husband in the 1980s.
It's such a wonderful life to me, and I'm so glad to be part of the Bethel family.
Barbara Anderson quickly rose to become the Watchtower Society's head researcher. On October 8, 1991, when the Church's magazine publishes a shocking article on pedophilia, she's stunned by the feedback.
It was an avalanche of information, and it never happened before, and we never dreamed there were so many. Word came from up high through some members of the governing body to stop any interest in this subject. We're unable to help the victims.
Every move she proposes is rejected flat out, one after the other, even the simplest one of all.
You report it. Let the authorities handle it. It's so simple. This is not revenge on a religion. It has nothing to do with this. This is a protection of a future generation of people.
Documents chronicling the misconduct of the faithful can be found in each Kingdom Hall. Here too, in the small town of McAllister in Oklahoma. These files are secret and impossible to obtain, sometimes even for police officers, armed with a warrant.
Well, the detective, he decided to serve a search warrant on the Kingdom Hall because we told him there's documents, they keep proof of these events. I know where the file cabinet is. He had me on the phone. He said, Debbie, this file cabinet's empty. And my heart came up into my throat. I felt physically sick. They left. There was nothing to get.
The documents are gone. The ones Debbie McDaniel was counting on to prove she's telling the truth.
We've talked about what a record is. The question is, why has this come up? Why is it that we have records management now? We've been functioning as an organization for years. Well, we know that the scene of this world is changing, and we know Satan's coming after us. And he's going to go for us legally. We can see by the way things are shaping up. So the organization has said, we've run into difficulties in the past because of the records we have. Like most departments, you get the questions, you go through, you create a draft, and you think it looks really good, you pass it by, or someone in your department passes it by you as the overseer, and you look at it and say, no, change this, change that. Well, you do a few drafts, and if you're like Justin and I, that goes around quite a few times. We look at all those that were not approved, all these drafts, and we get rid of all drafts. And the reason is because there's many comments that are sometimes made on drafts. Those are the ones that get us in trouble.
But it's in California that the Jehovah's Witnesses have paid the highest price.
What happened here is, for the first time in the world, a jury found that Watchtower consciously disregarded the rights and safety of children.
The price the Jehovah's Witnesses were ordered to pay? $28 million in damages. That came with an implicit acknowledgement.
That was part of a broader worldwide policy in every congregation in the world, in the United States, in North America, everywhere, to keep secret known child sexual abusers.
The Jehovah's Witnesses are willing to pay big to keep that secret. $4,000 a day. That's the fine a judge has slapped on the Watchtower Society. $4,000 for each day the church refuses to hand over to the court their list of pedophiles. They've been compiling that list for at least 20 years.
$4,000 a day is nothing to Jehovah's Witnesses. Watchtower is worth billions of dollars in real estate and holdings.
New tonight, a WGAL News 8 exclusive. A York County man has turned himself in for charges related to a sexual assault on a 4-year-old dating back 13 years.
And there are questions tonight about whether clergy at the Jehovah's Witness Church in Red Lion knew about the abuse and failed to report it.
Abby was just 4 years old. Her father says he walked in on his nephew molesting Abby in their Jehovah's Witness Kingdom Hall in Red Lion. Police arrested John Logan Hawk Wednesday in connection with that alleged assault, 13 years after Abby's parents claim they told the spiritual leaders of the church, known as elders. Pennsylvania law requires clergy to report suspected child abuse to police. The elders the Hawks say knew of the abuse are listed on the affidavit that led to Hawk's arrest. Hawk is now being held in York County Prison on $20,000 bail.
Inquiry underway in Sydney, Australia has uncovered disturbing information about child abuse within the Jehovah's Witnesses. Church representatives revealed that more than 1,000 members have been identified as child sexual abusers since 1950. The Commission learned that of those hundreds of cases, none was reported to police. An elder testified that its church practiced not to report sexual abuse, but rather to adopt a scriptural response to allegations.
The Commission heard from 2 abuse survivors who felt so unsupported by the church that they had both attempted suicide.
What might be the worst cultural sexual abuse and cover-up within a church that we've ever seen. That church is the Jehovah's Witnesses.
A royal commission finds 1,006 potential cases of sexual abuse detailed in files held by the Jehovah's Witnesses. How many were reported to the police?
Not one was reported by the church to secular authorities.
You heard right. Not one reported case out of 1,006. That left the Jehovah's Witnesses struggling to defend their actions.
What ability have we got to protect every child in Australia?
What you can do is you can report to the child protection authorities.
And that is done in some cases.
But generally it's not done, is it?
No.
And what about telling other authorities? Are you aware of your obligations if someone tells you of a serious allegation of sexual assault?
Well, we don't report it to the police. I think we encourage them to do that, but we give them the assistance to do that if they need that.
Church elders could now face criminal charges for concealing the abuse.
For some people, the circumstances will be such that they just can't stay, and they will find it necessary for their own survival, effectively, to disassociate. But the consequence of that is they are shunned and lose all of their prior social structure. That's the issue.
He or she can choose to be no longer an active member of the congregation.
I understand that, but if they are so unable to cope with what's happened and the way they've been treated inside the organisation, that they dissociate, then they lose all of their previous social structure. Is that right?
That could be the case, and we respect their right to make that decision.
Well, it's a pretty cruel way of dealing with someone, isn't it, who has suffered sexual abuse.
If I could take you to the book of Matthew, chapter 18.
Matthew 18.
Yes,
and here are
16.
the words of our Lord, verse 16, that's correct. And if he does not listen, take along with you one or two more, so that on the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses every matter may be established.
The reality is, if there's only one witness in the case of child sexual abuse, then it cannot be taken further by the elders, and as it's put in the literature, it's left in the hands of Jehovah. And as I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong, that in turn really is a reference back to Deuteronomy 19, verse 15. You'll be familiar, and perhaps we can go to Deuteronomy 22, 23 to 27. If, however, the man happened to meet the engaged girl in the field, and the man overpowered her and lay down with her, and the man who lay down with her is to die by himself, and you must do nothing to the girl. The girl has not committed a sin deserving of death. This case is the same as when a man attacks his fellow man and murders him. For he happened to meet her in the field, and the engaged girl screamed, but there was no one to rescue her. So the point of this last example is that there's no second witness, is there? Because the woman's in the field, she screamed, but there was no one to rescue her. Do you accept that? There was no other witness beyond the woman herself.
There was no other witness except the woman herself, but added to that were the circumstances.
Yes, well, the circumstances were that she was raped in the field.
Mm-hmm. Yes, but they were circumstances.
And it was sufficient, there being only one witness, it was nevertheless sufficient for the conclusion that the man should be stoned to death.
Mm-hmm.
But you'll accept, I'm sure, that in many instances where a woman or young woman makes such an allegation, she would feel a lot more comfortable having to make the allegation and explain the circumstances to another woman.
Is it possible for the process to be modified so that that decision can be made by a body which could include women? That is, the decision as to whether or not the allegation is true or false, made by a body which could include women, and that decision would thereafter be acted upon and a decision made as to whether or not to disfellowship by the elders. Do you understand?
I do understand, and I apologise, Your Honour, for not answering directly. I didn't understand fully what you were saying. The answer, Your Honour, is such a situation would be worthy of us considering and doing research and checking the scriptures. Yes, the possibility of considering that is there.